Okay, everyone, welcome to our workshop. This is the third of our series hosted by the APS Division of Biological Physics. Today, we're going to talk about how we apply for faculty positions. So before this, I would like Nancy Ford, would like to talk a little more about the whole overall series. Okay, Nancy.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's great to see you, or at least to see black rectangles on the screen with your names in them. This is meant to be sort of not only a learning opportunity for people, but also an engagement opportunity. So if you feel comfortable turning on your screen or your camera, I think it would help to make it feel a little bit more intimate and probably more enjoyable for the panelists too, so they're not just talking to black screens. So thank you very much. And welcome. So I'm Nancy Ford, and I'm the chair of our engagement committee at the Division of Biological Physics at APS. I'm also a professor of physics at Simon Fraser University, which is near Vancouver. And I just wanted to take a brief moment to tell you a bit about other upcoming events to keep you in the loop. So clearly you all heard about this one, which is great. If you want to learn about future events, you Google APS DBio and it will take you to this page, which is the Division of Biological Physics page. And if you click on workshops and networking, then you'll see a list of the upcoming events that we are organizing. These are approximately monthly. If you missed March meeting program insights or life at a PUI, there are recordings available that you can click on to see what you missed. As you know, today's is being recorded as well. Next week, we have our decadal survey report with Bill Bialek and other members of the decadal survey team. This was really looking at biological physics as a field and where it's headed. And particularly in this session, we're going to learn about what we as biological physicists should be doing to help move the field forward and implement the recommendations. So I encourage you all to attend. Later in August, we have an event on teaching biophysics, which could be very relevant if you're looking for faculty positions to learn about teaching, and also for those of us who are teaching to get some advice from peers. September's event is communicating biophysics. I'm super excited about this. When I'm organizing, we'll have Philip Ball, Janet Iwasa, and Raghu Parthasarathi joining us to help us learn about communicating. And then we have future events in the works for the other months. So stay tuned, read your emails from Engage, click on the link to register for the Zoom link for these. And what we really hope is that this helps to build community and provides events of interest to various members. So welcome again. Nice to see faces. More faces is always even better. But I'll turn it back over to Jianhua, who's hosting today's session.
Okay, Nancy, thank you. So everyone, this session, the focus on the applying job. So both the faculties being here, we all have passed this stage. So we know all the excitement and also anxiety. But this is what we here. We would like to provide some perspective and advices. So today I have invited 4 colleagues as panelists. So they are Jenny. Jing Yen. So I just read from my screen. Andy and Sarah. So I invited 4 colleagues. So they both, like Jenny and Andy, they have been faculty for many years. I've served on the committee, and even as Jenny as a department chair. So from the perspective of a recruiter, have a lot of things to say. And also Jing and Sarah, they more junior faculties. So they just passed the stage of application for a couple of years, and also now they also serve as a recruiter side. So I think all of them may provide some different perspective. What I plan to run this workshop today is like this. I want to run the three stage. The first stage, I'll ask the panelists to just provide their advices. Then the second stage is if you have any questions, just raise up and ask. First of all, you can just type in your box, or you can just after the second stage, just raise your hand and or just start to, if there's no other people, just ask questions. And then the two stage we record. Well, you may notice we got we'll record this panel. Then the third stage, what I'll do is I'll just stop recording, because if you have some other more specific questions or something, you probably not you really want to have more honest feedback of things. So you can ask there, and our panelists may give you there some advices. With this, I think we'll just start the first stage. Jing and Sarah, you may start. So Sarah?
I can go, yeah.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Okay, I'm gonna see if I can, okay, great. I love that so many people have their cameras on. So I have our story in hopefully just 5 minutes. Basically, when I was very research heavy for the entirety of my graduate school. I'm gonna go to university, and I think it was second year University of Michigan for one of their positions in biophysics, and so I said okay, and then I went on the job market because of that. And I didn't know what I was doing. I had absolutely no clue what a primarily undergraduate institution was. I didn't know what a teaching focused university was. I literally had no and interviews surprisingly at teaching focused and research focused institutions. And I later found out, and so the research focused institutions, I tell you that basically what would happen is everything would go pretty well, except I would never ever be first place.
There's something wrong with the
Called incomprehensible.
Yeah, that's right. So Sarah, can you hear us?
It looks like maybe she dropped.
We lost her. Okay. I'll just send her email to get her contact back. So maybe Jing, you just take over first.
Right, and thanks for the invitation. So first, let me introduce myself. My name is Jin Yen. I am an assistant professor at Yale University in the Department of Molecular, Cellular, and Developmental Biology, and also in the Quantitative Biology Institute. So for my training is actually in soft matter physics. I'm working on colloidal particles, Janus particles. I have a sit during my PhD, and I transitioned to microbiology during my postdoc. So, and what the biggest piece of advice I would like to share here is apply broadly. Okay, so this is not only geographically, but also in terms of number of departments. So because a lot of us here in DBio, we do this interdisciplinary research, right? Some of them can be in the physics department, some can be in the engineering department, some can be in the biology department. In the end, you know what you do, right? So you're interested in the state that you want to find a home department that would be interested in your work. And during the application, I found that there's the biggest mystery is this information mismatch. What do I mean by that? So like before I end up here, I don't even know what does Department of Molecular, Cellular, Developmental Biology mean, right? What is the Quantum Biology Institute here? I have no idea because I haven't been here. I absolutely no idea. But because all you would see is an advertisement. That's it. That's about it. You don't know what's happening here. At that time, I thought, oh, because of my PhD was in material science engineering, maybe I won't be fit for this job. But in reality, in that year for that ad, it was specifically looking for people with interdisciplinary background to look at biological questions. And a lot of here we're doing in DBio, we're doing this type of research. So you just don't make assumptions. It's not like a graduate school application. You have to fail PFE. You just apply, and what I did is for many universities, I applied more than one some departments. Sometimes I apply for 3 or 4 departments in the same university. And if you do get to the interview stage, and then sometimes I'll be interviewed for by two different departments in the same university, and don't think that this is awkward. It's not awkward at all, because here one of the departments I was turned down, and the other I end up in another department. What I found after I became a faculty here is that it's really nice because I know all the people through the interview process, right? And then it's very easy to initiate collaboration because I already know people and they already know me in that department, and then we can work to get together. So I haven't run into a situation where both departments offers you a job. In that case, I would say it can only work in your favor, right? But even if it doesn't work in the end, you already established the connection, which is really nice. So, and also, just simply, it's a number game, right? The more you apply, the more likelihood that you end up somewhere. So I encourage people who in this audience who is doing this interview research to think broadly which department you apply to, even no matter what your PhD degree is. And I have other advice, and I can share later on. Thank you.
Jing, that's very nice advice, right? You have several things. The audience may think about that. First you are international applicant. You're not English speaking, native speaking candidates, and also this is especially true for our community, right? Biological physics. Usually, if you know physics, you apply for physics. But now with interdisciplinary research, you can go to any different can be departments you may not necessarily thought of. For me, I end up in school medicine, which I honestly have never thought of that. So I think people later, the secretary will let you ask. Well, there are some related questions and really hear your input. With this, I think we'll let Jenny and Andy, who will go first? Yeah. Also, please, introduce yourself first.
Andy, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah. Hi, I'm Andy Spakowitz. I'm a professor in chemical engineering and materials science at Stanford University. I went on the job market back in 2004 when I was just finishing up my graduate career at Caltech. So a couple things about that search. First of all, my partner at the time, my future wife, was also looking for a faculty position at the same exact time, which of course has that brings a whole new set of challenges to the whole search. What I would say is that what Jing had said about casting a broad net and trying to really reach out to lots of different possible scenarios that would work for you really rings true for us. I mean, that was something that we factored in very, very early in our process. And so I totally agree. And I think that everybody approaches these things very differently, and everybody has their own personal philosophy. We were always very just upfront about the aspects, the challenges that we have, and the fact that we were both looking. This wasn't right at the point of writing the cover letter for them, but it did come out in the conversations as various institutions got as we started to develop a relationship. So I just want to point out that I think that being honest, transparent, and not playing games is really valuable in my experience. What I would also say then, as I went from my experience on the job search side to more on the side of evaluating candidates and looking at them for the purposes of hiring, what I would say is the perspective. My perspective totally changed. And you begin to kind of get this different picture of how people are looking at you. And I think that as a candidate, a lot of times you're really thinking about that one person in the department who's going to be like your champion, the one that is kind of closest to your field of research, that you're like, okay, I really got to deliver the message, and they got to know what a deep thinker I am, and just how, you know, transformational my research is going to be, which is important because it is, you do want to convince that person. But what I didn't factor in was that there's all these other folks in the department that they're looking at you and they're saying, is this going to be a good colleague? Are they going to, you know, be able to, you know, do all of the sort of challenging aspects of the job, which are an absolute necessity to be successful in this career? Everything from just, you know, engaging students to, you know, working with faculty and staff, and, you know, generating interest in your research and being collegial. So all of these things. So I'm just trying to also encourage you to begin to exercise those soft skills and recognizing the value of being able to engage broadly. Okay, so I want to be succinct so that we don't take up too much time, but those are my initial thoughts on my side, from my perspective.
Andy, very nice advice. Also, I want to point out that Andy, I mentioned that he when he applied, had a two-body problem, and also another thing, when Andy applied when he just graduated, he did a postphone. He got an offer, then postphone to take 2 years of postdoc, right? With the offer already. So this is another thing, you know, if still some people are interested in may check more. Okay, with this, let's see, Jenny.
Yeah, so hey everybody, I'm Jenny Ross. I'm a department chair of physics at Syracuse University, and I've been here for 3 years. Before that, I was at UMass Amherst for 12 years. I also had a two-body problem that we solved both at UMass and at Syracuse. And I've been on both sides. I've been on the hiring committee side now. And then as a chair, I'm also the person who negotiates, or actually I negotiate on the candidate's behalf is the way that I see it. So I'm the one negotiating with the dean to make sure that the people that I'm trying to get are getting what they need. So I would echo a lot of what Andy said. I think it's really important that you're being authentic. So I think when I was going through, there was a lot of focus on like you trying to fit yourself in. I don't think that that's a good idea. That's going to be it's going to make your life a living hell if you're trying to constantly fit in. And also, you know, usually these interviews are 2 or 3 days and you have many meals with people and you're with them a lot. I know it's different now if you're doing, you know, Zoom, but I think people are trying to get back to doing the in-person interviews because you do want to know if it's a good, like, you know, collegial fit for you, right? And so you need to be your authentic self when you're there. You need to be respectful when you're applying. And it sounds really stupid, like really low level stuff. Don't put your feet on somebody else's desk. That's not respectful. Allow other people to speak about their science too, right? Be what a good colleague. That's what they're looking for, right? Be positive. People don't want to hire people who are super negative, right? Like you got to be positive. This kind of gets to a lot of what Andy was talking about, like that, about that other stuff. You don't need to be the smartest person in the room. You already made it this far. Okay. I actually don't want to hire somebody who wants to prove that they're the smartest person in the room. That person sounds like an asshole. And I have my #1 rule in hiring: no assholes allowed. It's really hard in physics sometimes. But if you are an asshole, you're actually going to get cut and we will not make you the offer. I don't care how smart you are. It's not going to happen because I'm here to try to make an inclusive, welcoming environment, and physics socially is already culturally repulsive. Okay. So I don't need a bunch of repulsive people pushing all my students away from physics. And I'm trying to authentically increase our diversity. And there's only one way to do that, which is to be welcoming. So I don't need a bunch of jerks. Okay. So really, you know, I think you gotta get in the right mindset of, is this the place for me? And so this also says, like, don't hide yourself. When I was going through like college, like I got this tattoo. Can you see it? It's up high. Okay. It's very small. Why is it small? Why is it right here? Because I was worried that if I couldn't hide it during my interview, nobody would hire me. That's ridiculous. Who cares? Nobody cares about that anymore. But that was the kind of level we were at, especially as a woman in a male-dominated field. I didn't want to stand out too much. Don't do that anymore. That's not how the world is anymore. You should be yourself. When I was the year before I was on the job market, one of the other postdocs in my lab, who's a gay woman, who's, you know, an openly gay woman, I asked her, like, are you worried about that? And she goes, if they can't accept me as a gay woman, I can't be there. That was like mind blowing to me. She's absolutely right. Right. So I think that, you know, that you want to be authentic, you want to be respectful, you want to be positive. The other thing, this echoes what Jing said, apply early and apply often. You never know what's going to be good. Okay. And apply everywhere. If you are geographically locked, apply everywhere in that geography, right? Be very open-minded, right? And, you know, if you're there to do research, you know, make sure you're clear about how you're doing the research. If you're applying to PUIs, make sure you know about like teaching pedagogy. But I got to tell you, even at Syracuse University, you got to know about teaching pedagogy. You got to know about best practices. You got to know about inclusive practices. You've got to know about, we do a roundtable discussion where you are asked a bunch of these other kinds of things that are not just about your research. You already made it with your research. We need to make sure that you can do all that other stuff. And then the other thing is know what you absolutely need to get there. When you start doing negotiating with me, I'm going to tell you, like, you know, where I think the dean's going to try to fall. And my job is to push the dean up. But if you're a theorist and you don't have any equipment to purchase, I cannot get you $750,000. Like, that's just not going to happen here. That might happen at some other places, but it's not going to happen here. We're going to have to make a really, you know, tell me what you absolutely need. Right. And then I'll push to make sure that you have what you need to be successful. But like, you're going to also have to make some adjustments, right? We're negotiating here. So you can start high, dean's going to start low, and then we got to get to a middle that's going to get you what you need in order to be successful. Okay. All right. That's all I think I wanted to say.
Okay, Jenny, very nice advice from department chair perspective, right? Okay, so here, Sarah, yes, Sarah is back. So
Yes. Hi, sorry. Okay, so my story is going to be a bit of a counterpoint to that because I actually didn't know anything about teaching going into my interview at a PUI. So like I said, like I was in the business, I think I probably cut out when I was saying the research stuff just doesn't work out for me for some reason. I'm like, I feel like I'm always like in the mix, but I'm never. It's Claremont College. And for those of you that have never interviewed at a PUI before, I'm just going to tell you what the interview process is like, because it's not the same as it is if you're going at a research university. So at a research university, you have like a Skype interview. They ask you about your plans. And then if they like you enough, you're one of the 4 chosen to fly out for a research talk and a chalk talk. The initial interview for me was a mock TA session. So I was the TA and they gave me 4 problems that they were going to ask me about. And they said, we'll ask you about one of these problems and one of the teachers will pretend to be a student. And then on the other side of it, I got to see some interviews by people who were given the same mock TA questions. And for some reason, some people just don't prepare for these interviews so that their answers to the questions are actually wrong. Like, it gets that bad. So if you are going to interview at a PUI, make sure you prepare and you actually know how to answer the questions and you know the physics of what you're talking about when they ask you why you can't use conservation of angular momentum for a certain problem. Okay. Okay. So then you get to, let's say you pass that stage, you're one of the 4 chosen to be flown out. The TA session went well because I had a lot of experience doing that. And then I was put into a situation where I was asked to give a mock lecture. So there was a teaching talk, which is a mock lecture. There was a research talk, which was called Incomprehensible by somebody. And apparently the reason that they hired me was because there was a session where I sat with students for lunch and the students loved me. And so then they told one of the professors that I was loved by the students, and the professor just smoothed everything over. My teaching talk was way over everybody's head, apparently. So this is a complete counterpoint to like what Jenny was saying, because I think Jenny is right. I think, you know, it's good to come in prepared, knowing what a PUI is, like knowing teaching pedagogy, knowing all this stuff. But yeah, I didn't. And then they made me an exploding offer. So I was only able to go on one other interview that year before making the decision. Oh yeah, Jenny just put most PIs will teach you how to teach. That's what they said. They said I was very teachable, and so that's part of the reason they hired me. And then I got to be on the other side of it. So this is where I actually learned like the most that I could, because there were two candidates that were up for the job the next year, the experimental decision, and they both did really well. And the problem was that one of them was actually considered boring, and so because he was considered boring, the other person won out. And that was the first time I had ever heard of somebody using that as a justification for not wanting to hire the person. Like there are other things in play, like, oh, this person's research program is going to cost a little bit more. People aren't going to like it as much, all that stuff. But he just didn't seem excited about his own stuff. And so nobody was excited about him. So be excited. You know, you care, let everybody know.
Okay, Sarah. So you mean is you get excited, also get other people excited, right? Is that what you want to say?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Sarah. Yeah, I know some of our trainees in our department, they also end up in POI. I think they definitely, some advice from you will be helpful for people who think of that direction. With all our panelists have already introduced themselves and talked their general advice. What I do now is so for all the attendees who want potential applicant attendees, you can just raise your hand, or maybe just ask your questions directly. Yes, go ahead.
Oh
Hi.
my God.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Emily Garrels. I'm doing a postdoc in France right now in biology. I didn't actually catch exactly which departments each of you are in, but I guess I heard, Jing, you said that you're in a biology department. So my question is, how does teaching work if you have a PhD in physics and you end up in like a biology department, for example? Do you teach biology? Do you teach physics? Or how does it work?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I teach microbiology here. So this is also my research topic. And then because one thing I did during my last year, I also post once I have my offer, I post a year. In that year, I took 7 undergrad class in biology. That helps a lot. So, and also at that time, I also talked to the teacher and then asked for if you can share some teaching material. In the end, it became really helpful. So, and actually, I think it will be even like in terms of teaching, I'll be better for those who actually taken a class maybe 15 or 10 years ago, because I just took this class. So when I start teach, actually, these things are actually fresh in my mind. And I also choose to teach the subject I like most. In my case, is microbiology. I also co-teach the part of the physical modeling in biology. These two classes are what I'm really excited about, and I'm able to teach. But another thing is, yeah, the one thing is just last year, once you have offer, try to sit in the class. And another thing is, don't worry about, like, in the end, you still need to spend a lot of time to prepare for class, make the slides. In this process, you're also learning. And actually, that's good because you're learning by teaching.
Great, thank you.
So, Jing, actually, I want to follow up with this one. See, for you, right? And after this not traditional department, you think about it. Those departments, right? People in that department must have reason. There's some part of your research, some part of teaching. They think what currently missing that department they want to get. So when you deal your interview or your application process, do you how you guys got this kind of message across, or do you notice something you can adjust yourself to kind of show people show that the side, right? So the recruiter you will contrite to this department, although you are not traditionally the backgrounds have the background they used to have.
Can I say one quick thing?
Yeah.
maybe as one point is you know, on this subject, you maybe ask the question, so what do you want to teach, or what do you feel comfortable teaching? And let me tell you the answer to that. Everything. Like, you're comfortable teaching the subjects that are important to the department is my answer. And I would encourage you not to step in at that point and say, yeah, it's kind of hum and haw about, well, I really just want to do this, this, and this, because you don't know what their needs are, their priorities are. And frankly, I'm going to be honest with you, no matter what your background, if it's an undergraduate class, for example, you can do it. You can do it. You know, like, if you have a different background, you're going to step in, you're going to read, you're going to talk to colleagues, you're going to get the material, and you'll do a great job if you take it seriously. So that's my basic position.
So Andy, is this George told us the best way to learn is to teach a course?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, I love teaching classes that I know nothing about. I developed a class in machine learning, and I don't know anything about machine learning, not before I started putting this class together. And you know, by the way, I haven't completely changed my perspective on the world as a result of teaching it, but I learned that subject really well. And you know, you take the dive. It's a lot easier for me now at this stage in my career to take that dive. I mean, that's just a reality. Like, you know, I think you do want, once you get on the job, you know, you got to work with your colleagues to make a plan that works for you, that you don't have to, it doesn't totally overburden you to develop new classes like crazy. But you first got to get the job. So
yeah, I think that's a good point. So that's switch for this workshop is apply for the job, get the job, right? So with this, Jing, do you have anything to add on? You know, since for this teaching topic, or you know, and for applying for non-traditional departments?
I have something to say about what the question you just have during the interview. I think it's two parts. One, first, I'm both appointed in the department, which is a biology department, and also I'm in this institute, it's a quantity biology institute. And this you will see once you go to the job market, it's very common. Now there is this cross-departmental institute, right? But then, so it's that a lot of interdisciplinary research is done at this institute. But on the other hand, you still have to be a professor in a department, right? So the institute will hire together with the department, so that which is happened to be my case. So in that year, so when I was interviewing with my department, they already know that they're expecting candidates. I guess, okay, I didn't know what exactly happened there, but I guess they already expecting candidates with a background that's with a training not in biology. That's one aspect, and this will be, I guess you will see those interdisciplinary institutes more and more on the job market. The second is, even for speaking for my department, I think that it has it varies from department to department, but my department, I have to be careful here. I think my department has a history of having people with a basic training, and so they know how to talk this language, and they appreciate the value added by people coming from a different training background. And this, I feel it even more strongly when I actually join the department and start to talk to people. And I'm really glad that I'm in this department, because they appreciate this view, and then we have complementary expertise and then different way of thinking about it, so we can work things together. So I really enjoy it.
Okay, good. Thank you. Jenna?
Hi, thanks so much. I'm super excited to be able to talk with you all today. I have maybe a more me-specific question. My undergraduate and graduate training are both in chemical engineering, and I've heard rumors, and this is just me asking because of these rumors, that I am kind of pigeonholing myself into a chemical engineering department. And so I was wondering, like, from the viewpoint of maybe a physics department or like a quantitative biology department, is it attractive to still hire chemical engineers? Or I guess that's my question.
I think, yeah, our panel can answer the question. You know, we have Andy from chemical engineer, right, the background, and also other department. So who want to
I'll answer that one.
Yeah.
So I would say that there's a lot of physics departments out there who would be very closed to hiring a chemical engineer, but not all departments. And so I think no matter what, you should still apply. If you see a position that is something that would be good for you, you apply and you just make the case. People do read your cover letter. They do read your research statement. Honestly, if they're not reading your research statement, like that's crazy. Like what they're like wasting their, that doesn't make any sense, right? So use the documentation that you're going to give them to like make the case of why you fit in their department. That may make a little more work for you. In the sense that you can't boilerplate as much, but maybe you boilerplate for physics departments, you boilerplate for, chemical engineering departments, and you boilerplate for synthetic biology positions or something like that, so that you've got kind of a set of things for each one. And that will help you save time when you're on the market and throwing out like, 20 to 50 of these, right? So and remember, unlike grad school, you don't have to pay to apply to these. So please just send out as many as you possibly can. So I would say that, and then for a physics department, I've seen many physics departments like who've been very, very close-minded. That is actually a problem with physics departments, in my opinion. That's something that doesn't help physics departments. But I do think that there are a number of physics departments, and it helps that, more of the well-established departments are starting to change things. Like I know UPenn a couple of years ago hired a biologist. That's going to help, right? Like if you see examples of that where a department has already hired somebody with a very different PhD, that will make a big difference.
Can I just make a quick point? I totally agree. With what was said, and yeah, I mean, every department has their their own biases and what they bring, the perspective that they bring to their table, and how this works. But I mean, what I would say is, from the time when I was looking for a job to now, this is, academic research has become a highly interdisciplinary endeavor. And like, so I've graduated PhD students from 8 different departments. And that includes everything from the engineering side to biophysics, physics, chemistry, biochemistry. So, I mean, what I would say is absolutely, cast a broad net, get the feelers out, see what the possibilities are. It's up to them to decide if they have these constraints. But I think that I find the climate now much more like welcoming relative, at least to when I started. So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
I think this is one also great question. Jenny, you pointed that, when you apply different departments, right? Then you say the cover letter clearly is something very important. So do you guys have advice on what you should highlight so that people, especially, will apply to different departments?
Yeah, I would say that maybe the other statements are a little more important than the cover letter. The cover letter tends to be more of a formality, but it is a place where you can make this kind of a case, right? To say, I understand, you'll see on my CV, my background is this, but I think I'm appropriate because of these reasons. Like you can very quickly bullet it out. You will also typically have, and this isn't true everywhere, but a research statement. That's a place where you can really drive it home with the projects that you're proposing. And then, maybe a final paragraph where you're like, here are people at your institution, both in your department and outside of your department, that I could collaborate with on these things. And then they usually require a teaching statement and a diversity statement. And again, those are things that you want to make sure that you're hitting. It used to be if they didn't require a diversity statement, you could use the teaching statement to talk about inclusive teaching practices. But most people, if they've gone to a graduate program, have TA'd. Definitely going to highlight your TAing experience and kind of your ideas about teaching. Hopefully you have some, maybe you don't, I don't know, Sarah didn't have any, that's okay too. But, it would be good if you had some thought about these things and then I think people are truly taking seriously the inclusivity statements and the diversity statements nowadays. And if it really just seems like, I think it's important, like, yes, we all agree it's important. Like, you have to kind of demonstrate a little bit more thought, and then that I do think we do disqualify people on their statement based on their diversity statements sometimes in Syracuse. So I think that it's important to put in the effort on these things. I'm not suggesting you take a week off from work. Don't do that. Your current PI will hate you. But spend a few weekends, right? Like, instead of going into work on a Sunday, or reading papers on a Sunday, spend some time really thinking about this. Get examples from near peers, people who've done this recently, who got hired, who are in your field. That was super useful for me. If you have friends whose parents are professors, get theirs, okay? Talk to them about this because they already have an inside track. I happen to have had a good friend on the market at the same time whose dad was already a professor at Columbia. Guess what? He already knew how to do all this, right? And so there are people that you should be talking to and contacting that are your peers and your near peers. You're all going through this together, or some people just went through it. I would recommend getting, because my statement from 15 years, 17 years ago, that's a long time. I feel really old now. 17 years ago is not going to be helpful to you, right? Like seeing what I said, because things are outdated now, right? Like, so you want to talk to people who are being successful now, very recently, to get examples of how they're writing their statements.
More questions from the audience? Just feel free to raise your hand. Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess I thought I would ask people, particularly those on hiring committees, to share their perspective on the importance of publication track record. And where are your publications? How many are there versus, say, letters of reference that speak to your abilities and creativity and so on?
I mean, I could let Andy speak first, but maybe I should speak first. So, this really depends. So one of the problems that I've seen on hiring committees is when people, maybe they even have a rubric. Let's say they're doing best practices and they actually have a rubric for evaluation and things like that. It does, even with a rubric, the weighting that different people within the same committee give different aspects of the application process is very different. I had a colleague at UMass who really heavily weighted the letters over everything else. I don't know, maybe I'm a futurist, so I don't care about your past. I want to see what you want to do in the future, right? And my thought is that we can mentor you on these things, right? I mean, you do need to have a track record of publishing, or else it'll be hard for you to get a grant. Okay, so that's just a very practical reason. But you should have a track record, right? You should have and I don't really care where you're publishing. I'm the kind of person where I'd rather see PREs and biophysical journals for biophysics than a bunch of science and nature papers, because PREs and biophysical journals aren't retracted as often. And I want to see good science. Sorry. So, I'm okay with PNAS. I don't really care about science and nature so much. People end up having to withdraw their papers from there all the time. So it seems like a bad place to publish in general. So I think that I want to see, though, that you're doing, you have a track record. Maybe you're first author on one a year, and you've got some second authors and middle authors in there, but and it's more about a rate as opposed to you don't need to have 20 publications. I'd like to see stuff coming out regularly, and it's going to matter. Are you working with mice? If you're working with mice and you're creating fully genetic animals, I understand that that's going to take you longer. You can explain that in your research statement, right? If you're just doing in vitro reconstitution, or actually that can be hard too if you're trying to purify something, but depending on what you're doing, right? Some things are faster and some things are slower. You do need to be able to publish when you have tenure. So seeing kind of a trajectory, I think, is what I tend to look for. But like I said, I have different colleagues have different weights for different things. And some people, I think in our department here, we want to see consistent publication for several years, right? And so that's more important than the clout of the journal and things like that. We just want to see that you're consistently moving things forward and you have an interesting plan. You're going to get some funding, and we can help mentor you once you get here. It's kind of similar to the PUI issue with teaching. Like, we can help continue to mentor you and help mentor your creativity so that you're getting bigger grants and being put up for awards and stuff like that. Is our part of what we need to be doing for you. But like, you've got to have the track record coming in that's consistently putting work out there, right?
So Andy, do you have anything to add on?
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I was listening while I was also answering a question via the chat, and yes, yeah, and I think that what was said, I totally agree. Depth of thought and like good, solid, research. I think that whenever you build a research program, you're gonna, you want to know that, the interesting thing about being a PI is that, every single student, you have to navigate every student through the process. And sometimes that means they're going to be targeting, some of those glamour magazines, and some of them are going to be doing, solid research, and some projects just it takes all types, and you need to balance that and be strategic and be thoughtful. So that's one thing that I would say, is that I think a lot of committees recognize that, and recognize, the value in the diversity of publications and where they're going to and how they're done. The other thing that I would say is that when, the letter writers are so essential in providing a clear picture of how your publications came about, what your contribution was intellectually, and and at all stages of that project, whether you initiated it, whether you had the independence of thought to carry it all the way across the line. I mean, these are all contextual things that letter writers are essential for providing. So, I mean, the publication record is only like one part of the picture, right? So there's lots of cases where you see somebody who like had a couple of really high profile papers, but then when you read the letters, it's like you kind of get a sense that they were just sort of like, science churning robots, and that they didn't necessarily engage in the real deep intellectual foundation that led to those papers. And if that doesn't come through, I mean, you can see that in an application. So, I mean, I think that, that's kind of how I see publications, because it's not always just numbers, right? Like, if it was just numbers, this would be easy, right? I mean, we could all rank order how many papers you have in whatever impact factor journal, but I think that it's a much more nuanced effort if you're going to find high quality people with really solid potential. So yeah, and committees recognize that.
And
So let's see, Jing and Sarah, from you guys' perspective, right? You are right applicants things. Do you have anything to say about this in terms of publication? How the committee may check with you, or how you show people your research, not just publication, the journal things, but how you can show people your contribution or things.
yeah, I really have something to say about this. So I was talking about a competition between two people, and one person got the job, one person didn't. The person who got the job, she did not have, a really deep track record of publications, but what she did have was sort of proof. Oh, sorry for the alarm in my house. It proved that she run her program at a PUI. So she had, essentially created this wonderful research program at the PUI that she was at previously as a visiting assistant professor. And she wrote about it, and you could see it in her presentation. And then the fact that she didn't have a lot of publications from graduate school just didn't matter. And she didn't even have publications from the PUI. It's just, it was clear that students were invested and that they were spending time, that they were very happy. She even had pictures of them searching for the fish that she was working on. So I would say just, you know, if you're applying for a PUI, make sure you show evidence of, or like suggest strongly that you could make an independent research program that would interest undergraduates and really give them a fulfilling experience.
Okay. So, Jing, do you have anything to add?
First, I haven't been on the search committee, and so I cannot speak from the recruiter side. I'm speaking from the applicant side. I feel like maybe it's more the question of the moment. When is the moment that I feel comfortable applying? So first, I feel like I need to have at least a paper from my postdoc, so to show that at least some projects. It's not like, because the thing is that when I was a PhD, I published those papers. How do I know? How do people know? It's not because of the PhD group you're in, but not because of you. But if you also produce a productive in your postdoc, then you should continue path, right? And that itself will take a few years in biology project, depending on the project, but it might take years, right? And then after the publication, then the question is whether I'm ready for the market. And I found there's a drastic difference, like when you go there. So because in biology, I was told that you don't talk about your PhD work. That's just training. You talk about your postdoc work, and then you need enough of data or story to tell a 1 hour seminar, right? So you need enough data to talk about a story. So that at that point, it's not so much about the how many paper you have. You need to tell a coherent story or picture, right? So this is after assuming you pass the first stage, then you go to the talk, and then you need to give a seminar like that. And then there's a timing issue, because I realized when I was applying to physics or engineering, the expected duration of a postdoc is different from the expected duration of a biology. So I tried. Towards the end, I try to be in the middle. If I take 1 more year, it'll probably be too long for engineering and physics, and I will be my favorableness will decrease. But on the other hand, if I do it early, then I will be considered too early for biology department. So I try to in the middle, because I only want to do it in 1 round. It's such a, I want to use a painful process, but it's a time-consuming process. I only do it in 1 round. I somewhere choose in the middle, which is around 3.5 years. That's where I went to the job market.
Okay, that's a good advice. So in the chat box, Margaret Chen, she just write something. Margaret is our current division chair. Maybe Margaret want to say a few words?
Oh, thank you, everybody. This is fantastic. Oh, sorry, fantastic. Thank you for your time. And please join DBio as a member. Keep informed, networking, find jobs. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Margaret. So yeah, the time flies, and we still have a few questions. So let's see. I have Aun.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for organizing this. I want to follow up on the publication approach, not about what impact factor and whatnot, but about strategizing on how to break up a story. So I guess I have 2 kinds of questions. In one project, I can make one big paper that'll really tell a coherent story, but each figure is going to could be a whole paper on its own. But I would present just the highlights of the finding in that section of the project. But if I do that one big paper, I publish in a year, from now, or it takes which would be like 3 or 4 years of work on the project. But if I break it up, then I can publish a paper every year, kind of thing. So I guess my question is, what's better in that regard? And then another kind of question is, I'm working on like several fairly, my cat's trying to walk on my keyboard. I'm working on several kinds of projects, and they all loosely fit together, like in a conceptually, because I want to work on I am working on interactions between species. But the details are very, very different. And so it would be very hard to tell a coherent story about all the projects. And so I guess I want advice on like how to approach that. Like I'm interested in all the projects. I want to do all the projects, and some of them are collaborations and whatnot. So, you know, I want to keep going on them, but I guess the advice I want is about how to like prioritize and what would be the thing to prioritize to maximize chances of getting a PI position. Okay, so those are the two flavors of questions.
So maybe I can say just something, and I know, you know, earlier we were talking about, you know, there was something said about, you know, doing thoughtful, careful work, and that is obviously very important. Like that's essential. At the same time, I mean, I think parsing out how to communicate your science, in my opinion, and this, some of it's from, you know, the perspective, of course, we all are guided by, influenced by our environment and how we're, you know, evaluated and whatnot. But I mean, I do think, you know, the question to me is relatively straightforward, is just how's it going to make the biggest impact possible? And how is it going to clearly demonstrate that how the findings are then going to initiate follow-up from your colleagues, from the community, and being able to navigate that, I think, is an essential question. So I think you want to, you know, it's hard to answer your question without knowing the particulars of this particular project, because, you know, sometimes a big story with lots of pieces that are put together is like essential for that problem. Like if it's integrating all these ideas into one large paper, which is highly impactful, that's one thing. There's another side of it, which is like, if you see that there's a very clear message from one part of the project, that like you can write the paper and somebody can just look at it and say, wow, yeah, that's like, I need to now think about like that. That's just like the tip of the spear or whatever. Like, then that's what you want to do. You want to then just write the story about that. So, I mean, I think that from my perspective, it's really just about impact. How are you gonna, you know, how do you make the message as absolutely clear that it is essential and that it's not just an incremental step? So I know that's a little vague, but I think that it's just a framework through which I would approach it.
I think probably something you also need to talk to your PI, right? You guys can decide. I think. So we have, you know, the time runs quickly, and I still have a few questions. So maybe I just move on with Catherine.
Hi, I'm Catherine. I'm a postdoc at UC Merced. So my question has two parts. I think the first part has been answered quite a bit. That is, how much of prior teaching experience does one need in order to apply for a teaching intensive university or to a PUI? And the second part of my question is, do I have to tune my research budget according to the type of institute I'm applying to?
Good question. Good question. So, Sarah, would you like to check answer at least the first question, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, just really quickly, I need to step out because I have to run to a session at this GRC that I'm at right now. And so sorry guys, I'm just like right outside the session, so I'm gonna jump in. But yeah, so good luck to all of you. I know it's a challenging process, but you know, put in the effort. It's like, it's a great career. I mean, I just want to leave with that. Like, I really love so many aspects of this job. And so if you're going down this path, it's a wild ride, but it's a good one. Okay.
Thank you, Andy. Very nice.
Good luck to you all.
Okay, let me take those. So let me just make sure I got the questions right. So how much teaching experience is required, and do you have to modify your research statement for the type
research
of
budget? Research budget, statement, yes, as well as the budget.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so how much prior teaching experience do you need? I can tell you that I got by with almost none. So I had TA experience, but I did not have much teaching experience. I got teaching experience later. But basically, as Jenny pointed out, they saw during the teaching talk that I was teachable. So if you can get across the idea that you're teachably going to be a good teacher, you know, then they'll maybe let you through. Most people that I see coming by have way more teaching experience than I do. So at the universities that I work at, the Claremont colleges, usually the people that end up even just interviewing are, you know, they've won teaching awards and all this stuff. So, but there's an entire range. And then for the budget, yes, you want to make sure. So the Claremont colleges are not poor by any stretch of the imagination. However, if you proposed a research budget that was more than 300K for your startup, that would not be looked upon well, I think. So depends on what research you're doing, but 300K is sort of pushing the limit.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So Jenny, do you want to add on as chair?
Yeah, I think that we don't expect people to have any more teaching experience than just if they've TA'd previously. We do expect you to be thoughtful and open to, you know, ideas about teaching. And we do, and I should say that not every school is like this, but we require at Syracuse University that before you get tenure, that you can demonstrate that you can teach a large service course well, which is a 300-person class here. And so, but don't fret, because we try to make it easy for you to learn how to do that by first having you co-teach with somebody else, then you take on the class yourself. And to be fair, these classes are never, like, the physics is not the thing that's hard, right? The thing that's hard is the management, because in the class, you're managing a large number of students, you're managing a large number of TAs, and we also use undergraduate peer instructors. And so you have to be able to kind of it's really a management. It's a question of management. Do you have the ability to manage this? You're also managing your research group. And so there's a lot. So to me, the biggest jump up from being a grad student or a postdoc to being a faculty member is your managerial skills. Like, you have to learn, but nobody's expecting you to have managerial skills either when you come in, right? But you have to be open to understanding that that's a major aspect of the job, right? And then you have to demonstrate that in the course of, like, you know, the 6 years to tenure, but let's be honest, within 3 or 4 years, you could really pick that up. If you don't pick up managerial skills in 3 or 4 years, you're not going to get tenure, because you won't get anybody to do any work in your research group, and you won't be able to teach, because most of what all that stuff is management. And I think it's actually really problematic that we don't teach people more management.
I think we have some, Jenny, I think we have some documents from HSMI or something to help about how to manage the lab thing. We need to provide those links, right? We need to check. I vaguely remember something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a book that Cold Spring Harbor has published called At the Helm, which talks about like management of a research group. Like, there's lots of things out there. Like, none of these things are a secret, right? But the fact of the matter is like, most people don't think about them as like the first thing that you need. But to me, it's actually one of the most important things that you need. And just, you should start seeing yourself as a leader. Like, you're the leader of your research group. You're the leader in the classroom, right? And you're a leader of like a bunch of cats. So you have to figure out how to get cats to do things, right? So, you know, and whether those cats are students or your research group or other faculty members, because you're serving on a committee, like whatever it is, but you have to figure out how to lead. And it's different if you're a white dude, if you're young, if you're old, if you're Black, if you're a woman, like, it doesn't matter. It's different depending on who you are culturally. You have to figure out how to lead with the identity that you have and with the perceptions that other people have about you. Same thing in the classroom. So, you'll have to develop your teaching style. People expect you to take a little bit of time to figure that out. But they do expect you to basically be able to do it by about 4 years in. Yeah.
And the part about the research budget or the research statement, does that change from institute to institute, like the type of institute?
I would say yes. Yeah, you really have to be able to show that you've been thoughtful about how to incorporate undergraduates in your research program. I mean, I actually, my lab is ballooned out to 30 this summer because I have like 6 high school students and 12 undergrads. And like, I mean, I always incorporate like all of those people into my research program, but I'm very rare. I'm like, I could easily pick up my program and just convert it to a PUI because of the way that I run it. But that's not typical, right? Most people think about postdoc mentoring and grad student, kind of focus on that. And then they kind of forget about undergrads. At a PUI, you want to do the opposite. I think what Sarah was saying about like, if you have a thoughtful program, research program that undergraduates can undertake, right? And a lot of times what I envision and what I do in my lab is, what phase space are you trying to understand? And can you assign each undergrad who is in your research group a part of that phase space, whether it's simulations or experiments? I think that's a good way to break up an undergraduate project, right? And then you end up with like 5 undergrads on one paper. That takes you 3 years to get out. But for a PUI, that's good, right? You got a bunch of students on one paper. That sounds perfect, right? So think about your phase space. Like, are you examining salts? Are you examining like the concentration of this protein or whatever it is, or this natural product that you're going to squirt all over your cells, whatever it is. Like, there's phase spaces that we're all exploring. Break those up and give each student their own little part of that project, right? That's a good way to do that. You could even turn that into a class, and I'll just give you something to look up, a course-based undergraduate research experience. It's a class where they're doing research. It's a great way to get papers and to teach simultaneously. And it's a buzzword that you should probably know for your stuff, because it's like the hot thing that everybody wants to do. People I know who run cures publish papers because the class is their research. And it works great at PUIs.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I have 2 quick things to add here. So, and what Jenny was saying. So, one thing I realized that nowadays for junior faculty, we actually have a lot of management course. Actually, I already took 2 here for the. I've been here 3 years. I took twice. I found it super helpful to have a bunch of junior faculties, and there's a profession, either organized by our faculty or by a company outside. Or then we really think about the management skills, and I found it really helpful. So. There will be some training like that in the early career of your faculty job. So that is on management. Second, on teaching. So teaching mostly, I feel like it's we're learning why we're teaching, right? So on the other hand, even if I know I'm going to apply to more research-focused university, but I still took a year-long course on how to teach back when I was a postdoc at Princeton. Princeton offers like some teaching course where you take seminar, you go to seminars, like say once every month, and then I TA'd and I even asked them to come and watch my TA, and they will video my TA and watch it together. That's the most embarrassing part, but this auto process, it helps. And then Princeton, in the end, they'll give you a certificate after you finish this 1-year course. And I'm not sure how helpful it is in the application process, but I found this really helpful in learning all the theories. Actually, people publish a lot of papers on teaching pedagogy, right? Then I have no idea about the reverse classroom, all the stuff, but I learned all this in this year-long process. So what I would suggest is if you're really interested in teaching, no matter whether you are applying to PUI or research universities, check out what is offered at your current institution. They might have a teaching center that offer this kind of course or advice. I find it super helpful.
Just add on to that. Oh, sorry. Just add on to that. MIT had something similar, and Claremont has something similar, and they have workshops all the time. And MIT had this Kaufman teaching some like a week-long course where you learned like all the pedagogy. These things exist.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
So much. Yeah. So we let's see. We run over an hour, but anyway, I have Chapin, right? Is that right?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, Chapin. Yeah, that's right. I just have a quick question. So I'm doing a postdoc, and I got recently placed as the lead on working with a bunch of private sector data. And from a scientific perspective, it's fascinating. It's this novel vaccine stuff. But the company has told us outright that it's not going to lead to a publication. Like, even if it's really cool, we're going to protect our product, and you're not going to publish this anytime soon until the product becomes open to the public. And so I'm worried, even though the science is really exciting and really cool, it's not going to go on my CV as a paper. It's not going to be published. I can write a report and I can have a different section on my CV for reports written for this company. I'm just wondering, I'm sort of at a crossroads where I'm going into my second year as a postdoc and I've been applying, and I'm wondering, should I sort of not spend a lot of time on this project that's not going to lead to papers and spend time on my other projects, even though the science is really cool? From a hiring perspective, I'm imagining that I can't really convey anything that I'm working on to a committee. I'm just kind of asking for the opinion if I should sort of step down from this project or not in terms of being an ideal candidate.
How much time is it taking you?
An increasing amount, because we're getting given more and more data. So I would say approximately 50% of my time in the past month is working with this project.
And your other projects, though, are coming to fruition and you're able to, I mean, so I could imagine that if you think there's an opportunity for you to get money from this company or something like that, that would be something you could sell as a selling point. If you think it's a contact you want to maintain because it would help you place students, grad students and undergraduates into a company setting, like into industry after they graduate, after working with your group, that's a selling point, right? There are positives to continuing that relationship with that company outside of just, you know, the papers that are coming out. So I would think about, like, you know, what are some of the peripheral positives that you could sell on the job market about that? And you can even just say, like, you say what you just said to us, right? Like, I can't really talk about this. It's very cool. And the benefit is the benefit to students, right? I do think no matter where you are, you want to be student-centered when you're on the job market, right? People care about placing their grad students in industrial positions, their undergraduates in positions. And that actually is what the thing most academics lack, is any connection to industry at all. This actually would be awesome, right? That you have that connection. But yeah, maybe 50% maybe isn't the right amount for you, maybe 30%, and then 60% of your time on these other things that will allow you to actually get papers out. And I would be very frank with my PI and the company and say, these are my, right? And I think I need to be publishing more regularly. And so therefore, like, it's not that I don't enjoy this work, it's very cool. I definitely want to contribute, but I think I need to be working on something that's going to allow me to reach my goals, because I'm worried that this will not do that for me. I think it's very fair to say to somebody.
Yeah, it's very helpful. Thank you. I didn't even think about that, that sort of spin of upselling the job market. So yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, good. So Emily, you have another question? So maybe I'll let you to ask the last one.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I wanted to follow up on something that Jing had talked about a while ago now, about timing for when to go on the job market. So, you know, I'm in a biology lab right now, so the projects can take a lot of time. And I guess I'm personally at the point where it's up on the archive, but it's probably going to take a lot more time to get through review. So I guess, yeah, what's the sense of, is it good enough to have something that's on the archive and in the process of getting published, or is it better to wait until you really have something with the journal name on it?
I think that actually it's a huge benefit now that there's not just archive. I mean, that was always there for physics since my time, but bioarchive also, like that, you know, that these are now, it's being more accepted among even the biology community. Again, if you're thinking about a really broad search that includes some biological departments, it's our full story. If it's up on the archive, it's a full story. I think you just, and with the idea that it will go somewhere. Right. So, and that, if that's your story that you're going to make your 1 hour talk about, like, or your 45-minute seminar, great. Now you have something to put at the bottom, right? That doesn't just say preliminary data. It says archive, put the link, put that on every single slide, right? so that people can be like, do, 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 and plug it in and they can pull it up and read the paper. So you need to be advertising yourself all the time. And while you're giving your talk, you should always have your citations up, every single one that you possibly can. And I'm like, I take this to the extreme. I don't even like to use other people's videos in my intro. If I can make a sell video that's the one I need for myself, I'll make that video myself so that I'm not having to, especially when I was at your stage, so that I wasn't even having to say that like the background came from somebody that wasn't, the equivalent of Halliday, Resnick and Walker, or like molecular biology of the cell, like the textbook, right? Like I wanted to really be like, show that I have this, everything about this background even is from my stuff. I don't even want to give any credit to anybody else. And that's like, again, because I have the bar for, I feel like the bar for a woman in physics is higher. So I needed to display that competency, right? So higher. So that was the extreme level that I took it to. I don't think it's necessary, but like, because it's also good to show that the literature and stuff like that. So there's a compromise there that you can make, but yeah, so I would display it. I'd talk about it. I'd display it. Maybe one of those people might be your reviewer and they have a positive predisposition, or afterwards they'd be more positive about the review process. You don't know. So.
Yeah, to add on Jenny's points, I think you put on archive, and then if it's already under review, submit it under review. You can make it clear in a cover letter like this, and on your CV. So it's an archive and it's under review, XSS. So because I found the tricky thing is that it might take less than a year for the paper to be accepted, but you don't want to miss the cycle, right? So the bigger question is that whether you think you are ready and whether your PI thinks you are ready. I think oftentimes the PI's interest and your interest might not completely align. So you want to have a candidate candidate conversation with your PI to see where they might you might want the revision of this take a lot of times. If you leave, then these things might not be finished. So these are the conversations that you might want to have your always PI. On the other hand, okay, speaking just on your perspective, on applicant perspective, I find there's two approaches about timing, right? I found it two approaches when among my friends. One is to keep applying multiple years. Whenever there is a position available, then you just apply. The other way is that, and then each year you don't take that much time to apply. Whereas I took the other approach. I just want to do the one round and then get off my mind, and that's what I did. In one round, I applied to as many universities and as many departments as possible, and I'm done in 1 year. So I think for my take on this is that for interdisciplinary research, it's actually better to do it to do 1 year, you apply many departments because you can. But if you are working on a very niche subject, and it's only possible when there is a niche application, that's niche advertisement that really look for your expertise. It might not be on the year that you want to be on the market. In that case, you want to apply multiple years. Whereas for interdisciplinary research, I would say then, if you can discuss with your advisor and find a year, and then you tell them, okay, I will focus on this. The thing is that even though, let's say you have 2 interviewers versus 10 interviews, believe me, it takes the same amount of time. So I just want to do it in 1 year. So, but what year that is, it depends how you feel, whether you are ready, whether the paper is ready, whether you can give a 45-minute seminar based on your story, and whether your PI is okay with you ready. All these things. Hope that helps.
Okay, very nice. Since already 1:20, what I'll do is first of all, I'll stop recording. Then I'll ask the panelists if you have some stop recording.